the exact timeline that they're showing us. And then they show the repeats. And then they show that when you go from one king to another, it seems like it matches. But then you find the parallel story 330 years later, 330 year shift. And then it happens another 300 years. So it sounds like a joke. That's what he's shown. And then we come to the Middle Ages, we find the same kings again in the early Middle Ages, and then we find them in the first part of the Middle Ages. It's like there's three parts. Yeah, so he shows it. So maybe that person didn't understand it. And then you have to read through the stories of the kings. And actually, when you see it, you'll think, oh my God, it's like, Julius Caesar is Solomon. Yeah. So and Charlemagne is Solomon. But then if you put the order, it's like they will say Charles Martel was his father, but then there's some other kings in the middle. So what Fomenko did was he made the graphs and then he removed the kings in the middle and he showed the parallel stories, and then the number of years matches when you remove the so-called alleged kings, or when they say, hey, there was like civil war, internal strife, there was 3 kings or 4 kings. It's like they just added on their own versions. In different countries, they added on imaginary characters, fictitious people don't even exist. Once you understand the method and you go from country to country, that's when you can see it, or otherwise you can't.
I see.
You
Yeah.
see?
Yes.
Yeah. So the thing is, yeah, maybe that person didn't go from country to country and have a look at it, but you'll find the same timeline, same charts, but with different years missing in the middle, added on extra years, and you'll find the same timeline going back 5,000 years in the so-called kingdoms of Egypt, and you'll think this is impossible. You see? Yeah. It's or in the kingdoms of China, it's impossible.
So
So
basically,
the
what
thing
you're
is,
saying is that the criticism that his Nick's fresh translator found on these documents when he was researching is it's
it's
accurate that
not a
he found
criticism. What he's done
he's
is that he's found what Fomenko found,
right.
and
So basically, he
and
found gaps that are correct, let's say, and because he was saying that Fomenko put the graph too nicely, like as if Fomenko made the graph
no,
more
he made a
beautiful than it
summary.
naturally would be. That's kind of what his
No, it's
complaint
not
was.
about beautifully. It's a summary. It's like he made a reconstruction, and he showed in the because if you don't make the reconstruction, it's like, for example, let's say there's Donald Trump, and I'm now saying he's the president of Antarctica. So now Antarctica, there's nobody there. I've got to make the history. And I said that Donald Trump was the president in the 17th century. Then in the 18th century, we've got George Bush. Then in the 19th century, we've got we put John F. Kennedy and Nixon. Then in the 20th century, we put Harry Truman and Roosevelt. You're going to say, what the fuck? They've just put it backwards and added on hundreds of years in the middle.
Hmm.
But the stories we hear that during Donald Trump and Biden's time, there was the Gaza war. So then you turn around and think, hey, let's have a look at the history of America. And then you say, hey, they've just... So what he's done is that he's made graphs and then he's shown that they've used Donald Trump in Antarctica and they've just given him a new name, David Ewing. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
George Bush is Raphael Comendi. So then he shows, but then there's the years in the missing. And he explains that. He shows it, and that's why he calls it, we're doing a reconstruction. He said, we're going to apply it, and then we'll show the similarities. And then you'll see that they've invented the history and added on hundreds of years with 330 years or 100 years here and there. And then he shows it. He shows it when you go through it. In some of them, he doesn't mention the years, but he says, "Look, it's exactly the same story."
Right.
It's like
Right.
we went through the history of the Holy Roman Empire. I can't remember which video, or it's in the books where I show that there's Charles Martel and then there's Charlemagne. Yes, Charlemagne constructs all these cathedrals. Then we've got King Solomon. He's the main constructor of the temple and then other temples. They make smaller temples. It's like a temple movement, synagogues throughout Israel. You see?
Hmm.
Yeah. Do you see it? But between Charlemagne and things like that, they've added on extra kings. So Fomenko will put the graph for the kings in France and say, look, this is the biblical history. They've duplicated it and they've put extra years in the middle, but it should be like this. Yes? So that's what he's done. You see? Because if you
Hmm.
don't do that, then you can't see it. And that's why when many people saw it,
So the
it's
way I
because
understand it,
you
basically, where the fresh translator makes the criticism and says, "Oh, there is something missing or jumping or whatever," is basically just Fomenko shortening that,
simplifying it.
and
No,
just to
sorry,
show, okay, maybe there's 300 years difference, but still the story is the same or the length is the same, and in this way
yes,
correlating it. So
right.
he's not being as
No, it's like
strict,
simplifying it.
maybe.
I'll give you an
Hmm.
example. Yeah, there is the book Secrets of the Kabbalah. Now, when I show that it's 33, then I show that there's Da. Yes, it's 9 plus 1, but on the other side it's 10. So it looks like I've played around with the figures. I haven't. I've simplified it because the dart, they don't draw it on many graphs, but they put it at the bottom.
Correct.
Then they show the Earth with the human. Yes, but it's actually there. It's because you cannot do the Kabbalah tree of life without doing it there. Then there is um, the 19 heavenly bodies, the 12 star signs, the 5 planets, and the sun and the moon. But somebody could come along and say, hey, in the modern day, according to NASA, yes, which nobody has seen, nobody has been out there, there's all these planets there. Then there's other people who are going to say, Saturn, it means Saturn. No, it doesn't. Who said it's called Saturn? They gave it that name on purpose. You see,
Right.
it's not called Saturn. It's got nothing to do with Satan. You see, that's just superstition and theories. I could say the next planet's called the devil. And then in 100 years' time, everyone will say, that's Saturn, that one's the devil. Yeah. And then they've, even if you get the best telescopes, yes, from what we can see, yes, sometimes it looks like there's rings around Saturn, sometimes it doesn't.
Hmm.
So we're not sure. Sometimes it just looks like an orb. Yes.
But
So the thing
also,
is, there
it's
is no
isn't this also some kind of like humanism worship to make the stars into people and stuff like this? It kind of sounds like this to me.
it's just superstition. It's like the moment you call the planet Venus the devil, yeah, Venus the goddess, yeah. So they've added on the story Venus the goddess. So many people will think, hey, astrology, you're worshipping the stars. It doesn't mean worship. It just could be just science. So it's like when you say things, people start to believe it and things like that. But anyway, going back to Fomenko's timelines, yes. So what I did is I simplified it and I showed, hey, that's what everybody does. When you are doing these astronomical calculations or astrology, then you take into account the basic things. The basic things are there's the 12, star signs. But some people could say, hey, there's 13, there's 20 star signs, there's more. But the main point is there's 12 major ones. So when you are doing the calculations, you will base it on the 12. So now there's 5 planets. Yes. And so the thing is, there is the orbit of the planets, and along comes Kepler. Oh, yeah. And writes his book, which comes out on the 19th. I forgot the exact date. I'm talking off the top of my head. We're just talking today. So along comes Kepler. And then he says, hey, when we see the orbits of them, they form the 5 Platonic solids. Yeah. This is part of sacred geometry. Now, sacred geometry, they call it sacred. It's nothing to do with sacred. Yeah, it's because, and many people have turned it into a fairy tale. They've added on their extra garbage. There's hundreds of videos. Sacred geometry just means the simple science, the basic science, like 1 and 1 is 2, 2 and 2 is 4, 3 and 3 is 6. Something that we could see. We can see 5 planets with our eyes. We can see the sun and the moon. So that makes 7. And then there's the 12 star signs that we could see that we've divided and it's universally accepted. Some people will say there's 13. Some people will say there's 30. You see? So these are the things. Yes, somebody will turn around and say, hey, these are the things. mathematically they missed it out. No, they didn't use it. So that's why they calculated 12 months in a year. Yeah, that's why they calculated 7 days in a week for the seven heavenly bodies, the sun and the moon on weekends. That doesn't mean they worship them. Yes, and then they will say the days of the week got the names from these so-called planets. Lundi, the day of the moon, or Monday, the day of the moon. Yes, we did base them on these things, but that doesn't mean that they had those names, like the current name Saturday or Saturn's Day. Yeah, it doesn't mean it's Satan or Saturn's Day. At some point in the last few centuries, they changed the name to Saturn and added it on. Yes, because they didn't like it, because they noticed that the people who were not with the Vatican and the rest of them, that they call the Muslim, the Jews. The Jews were Muslims, yeah. As I showed before, that they were called Musliman, yes, and the Muslims, that they pray on a Friday, and then the Sabbath, yeah, Sabbath day, yes, Sabbatai or
Yes.
Sabbath day, yes, is actually Saturday. At some point, they decided to change it to call it Saturn's Day, to say these people worship Saturn. You see? Yes. So they gave it that name because they knew that people will be superstitious, and they've added on some extra crazy history to say, no, that planet's always been called Saturn. No, it hasn't. It's not been called Saturn. And by who? Who decided to call it that? They teach it to you in school, so you believe it. So there's these calculations. So when we look at these calculations, Fomenko's calculations, what he's done, he's shown the major kings. Yes. And then he shows that in England, it's actually a total mess. You can jump from one major king to another. And when we study English history in school, I remember I was only 10 or 11. I thought, what the hell? They're jumping from one kingdom to another. And it's like a small country, just England, forgetting Wales and Scotland. And they're saying there's 5, 6 kingdoms or something like that: Essex, Wessex, Sussex, or whatever, Mercia, Northumbria, and things like this. And then they show like there's all these wars going on until the Vikings invade. And then when you have a look at it, they say that the last Viking to invade was William the Conqueror at the Battle of Hastings. And they say there was Harold Godwinson, he was the king. But exactly 19 days before that, he has a battle with Harold Hardrada. Yeah. And they say he was a Viking, he came from the north and he won. But
Yes.
19 days later, so when you go through the exact details of the history and you see the astronomical data that they put in, the 19 for the 19 heavenly bodies and all these other things, you turn and think, oh God, this is just a joke. That's basically it. Yeah. Yeah. You see, it's like
Mm-hmm.
we jumped even in class. It's like to go from one major king to another. And then some of these dates of these so-called kingdoms, it's like one king dies in one kingdom, but the next major king turns up in the other kingdom. But and then you don't talk about the king who's in the other kingdom, who's a Mr. Nobody who's just come. And then when you look at these stories, they have parallel stories in the Byzantium Empire. Yeah, and they've prolonged the history of the Byzantium Empire and falsified that. And then when you see these kings that in the Byzantium Empire, you'll find, hey, they're in different centuries. So all Fomenko did was simplified it in the reconstruction. It's not like making it look more beautiful or
Mm-hmm.
something. It's like simplifying it. So when I wrote my books, I simplified it to show that there's 12 star signs. Or you could check online how many star signs or constellations are there. Let's have a look. Yeah. And you'll see, hey, there isn't 12 constellations. Yeah, let's see. Um, yeah, because how many? 88 constellations, it says. Yeah, 88 official constellations. But then the thing is, you could turn around and say, oh, 88, they said it because of Jesus Christ. But the thing is, there's 12 major constellations that you could see with your eyes. And then the rest of them, you can't see them. Yes, and in the past, the other constellations that you can see are actually included within those main 12. You see, all they've done now is divided them and said, "Oh no, this and that," because our probe or our spaceship has been out there and taken pictures. So what Fomenko did was he didn't make it nice or something. He made it simple so that you could see it, and you could see the lines. I don't know. Have you basically got the idea,
Yeah,
or
I
you
think I,
haven't?
I think I got the idea, and that was also my assumption, I guess, when I was presented with the evidence, but thank you for clarifying it. There's only one thing I can share, which I recently was made aware of by a fellow researcher in chat, and he was looking at the frequency and recurrence intervals of Easter Sundays in the Gregorian calendar, and there is a percentage-wise accumulation for to which date Easter falls. The range is from 22nd of March until 25th of April. However, the highest occurrence, this is for Gregorian Easter Sundays from 1583 AD to 3000 AD, the highest percentage occurrence wise would be 3.867% for April 19th. So also here we can see again that whatever they did with the Gregorian calendar, they made sure to put their 19 coding in.
Yes. Uh, uh, um, it's not just a code. I will give you an example. There are the Jesuits. Yes, there are. Many people think the Freemasons are united as one organization. No, there's different organizations. Like we have the is it called co-masonry? The exact word? I forgot the exact name. Yes, there's many different types of Masonic organizations. Now, the thing is, some people will call it a craft, some people will call it art, but you get down to sacred geometry. Now, I did my two books, Secrets of the Kabbalah. That is the introduction to the Kabbalah. Then next comes along, after the Kabbalah, next comes along how you use this Kabbalah, and then you use it to the 33rd degree. Then next, once you understand that, just the basic principles, because I've simplified it in my book. Of course, many people will say, hey, it's more deeper than that. Of course. But if you jump into the deep end, you won't
Yeah,
understand it without going through the basics. So Fomenko was doing basically the history of the entire world. So when he did it, yes, it wasn't an easy job showing many of the lies. Yes, it's like in some of the charts, yes, the later charts in the later Middle Ages, yes, they're almost like the kings. You could do the kings according to what they've shown us. But when you get to the older charts, it's not so simple because they just added things on, and in each country, people were adding their own extra things on, for nationalistic purposes,
right.
imaginary characters, and things like this. So they added these things on. I mean, and the imaginary characters and other things, you could see it, many of them were aligned to do with astronomical calculations. And Fomenko doesn't go through these calculations. Yeah. But once you go through some of the historical art and the way they did the writing, so the first thing is, if you understand the secrets of the Kabbalah, the next thing is the symbolism. The symbolism is not just in the designs, it's actually in the alphabets, the way the letters are designed, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the actual shapes. Yes, the actual shapes. And that's, I go through many, many examples of that in the 33rd degree. Then once you've understood that, what they've done is that they've made it difficult to understand sacred geometry. Now, I just show a little bit of sacred geometry in the 33rd degree, like I showed you. Basically, online, there's thousands of books, thousands of things, but it's very difficult to find anything about the art or the craft of sacred geometry. Yes, what the Jesuits use and many Masons in the past used to invent the history for the nation states. And in the book 33 Degrees, I go through some of that to show how the 19 in 3 dimensions turns into a cube. That's very difficult to understand because they don't teach you the simple mathematics. Yes, and the squaring the circle. And then once you're inside the square and the circle, when you draw the Platonic solids, notice there's five, and notice the Muslims pray 5 times a day. Now, I will tell
Mm-hmm.
you amongst the top, um, the top places of sacred geometry where it's been applied, where they've applied it. This is very shocking. Yes, sacred geometry is just simple science that's based on, as in the heavens above, on the earth below. Now, many people don't talk about this, but when we come down to it, there is that historical document, an oral document. There is the Quran. The Quran says, "Can you not see that the heavens or the sky above was joined together with the earth that's below? They were joined together as one entity, and then they were separated." So once you understand that concept, you will understand why they are putting mathematical data, or what you call codes, or sacred geometry, what people call. When we're constructing things, many people say, look at the designs of the cities, Washington, D.C. They think a lot of it is evil, this, that. And then they say, look at these shapes, this and that. Superstition, it looks like a monster or things. No, actually, what we've always tried to do for centuries is to duplicate heaven on earth. That's why the old world order in Tatar language, Altin Orda, the order of Eden, or the order of heaven. Yes, that was the old world order. And now what we've got is the order of earth, or the world order. Yes, but still, there are many organizations, they want to turn the world beautiful. But of course, they've all got their own systems. I mean, the Catholic Church has got their system. I don't think they stand a chance globally to set up their world order. Then we've got different types of Masonic organizations. I do know, yeah, there's many conspiracies. Many people will say they're evil, this, that, whatever. But the thing is, I showed you that they opened many schools throughout the Middle East, throughout India, and other places, colonial schools. A lot of them involved a lot of Masons. And the Masons, many of them, especially in the late 19th century and early 20th century, they understood sacred geometry. And they used this sacred geometry to organize the history, to organize the languages, where they invented languages. Yes. But many of the Masons who did it, they didn't do it with evil intentions. Yeah, they lied. But as we saw, in Albert Mackey's book and the other Albert's books, yes, the thing is, the point is to get through, yes, the historical legend, but for a purpose, to enlighten people or to awaken them, like another Renaissance. Yes, for the common poor
So
people.
wait, you're saying
So
I'm giving them an inspiring story, so they will, so I hope they will become better humans or something, or build a good civilization
it's
because of
like,
the
I'll give you an example.
heroic
There
nationalist
is the
story
story.
I'm telling them.
Right. It's not just a national story. For example, in the Bible, there is the story of Samson and Delilah. Now, some people will see this as, propaganda, and they'll say, "Hey, it's propaganda for God." Yes, and things like that. Yes, but other people will see it that it has a moral story. Now, for me, I turned around and thought, hey, maybe this story is a waste of time. But I spoke to a friend in Israel and said, I don't even know why the story's there. And he said, it's good. It's got a meaning to it. I thought about it, and then I thought even more. So Samson, he's young, he's smart, he's beautiful, he's powerful. People are afraid of him. Yes, and whether you want to accept God or not, or call it the grand architects, or whatever you want to call it, yes, God, yes, gave him strength, gave him beauty, yes, gave him many good qualities. And the thing is, basically, yes, it tells a story. I don't normally talk about these things, but there are some things that people don't talk about. But I'll give an idea. So Samsung finds a woman. She's beautiful. There's lust and many other things. But the thing is, for her, it's not love. And for him, it was love and trust. and then he gives his secret away. But the thing is, because of the lust, yes, he falls to earth. Same like the story of Superman 2. There is Superman 2 and there is Lois Lane. And the story of Adam and Eve, that they're in the garden, they're happy, everything's wonderful. And then they fall. Yes. So many people say that the story has something to do with sexuality. Yes. And there is the thing that in the Kabbalah, they've added things on. There's two sides to this story. In the Kabbalah, they say that, hey, you are, some people say that you are God and that you've got creative power because you've created a new life with your sexual capabilities. Yes. And we see aspects of that in Hinduism. Now, there are many rabbis who reject it. Yes. And in Sufism, there's many people who accept it, and there's many Muslims who reject it. In Christianity, yes, many Christians accept it. They say that, hey, you become one with God. Yes. And others accept it and say, no, God gave you this creative power, but God is God. But basically, Samson falls, and that's the moral in the story, to do with lust and other things. The same with Adam. And many people say the esoterical meaning of the story of Adam. This is what many people say. It's not me. So I'm just telling you the story that's out there. They say that, that the human sperm has got creative powers. Yes, that it's got life there. So don't waste it. Many rabbis say this. Many Muslim priests say this. Other rabbis, some of them say it doesn't mean anything. It's just you've had a sexual experience or masturbation. So I don't really talk about these things. But the thing is, there is something there, and many people will know what this is. So actually, don't waste it. Don't waste your sexual energy. Some people say it has no effect, but it basically has an effect on your life. So some of these are the morals of the story. But anyway, when you get to the sacred geometry, so they understood the secret of sacred geometry. Unfortunately, it's just simple things. Sacred geometry is so simple, you won't believe it. And the sacred geometry today, you will find it. I'm not sure if they still teach it in many degrees in Masonry, but many Masons, they have to do many essays and many things to see if they understood the morals. Then they get onto the sacred geometry to understand how it's applied in writing. And that's why we'll find the sacred geometry has been applied in the form of gematria and other things in numerology. Yes, in biblical manuscripts in books. Yes, it's not just the number 19, it's many other things and how they've put it there. So therefore, you will know they did it. Yes. Whereas it's like, for example, in many Muslim madrasas today and in Jewish yeshivas, they study a lot of this gematria or geometry. Yes, in numbers and words and letters. And many people think it's divine. But the thing
Right.
is, but once you know the secret, you will know it's not it's not divine that God hasn't put it there, but some people like the Jesuits are not Freemasons, but other Masons, because there's Muslim Masons, there's Hindu Masons, there's all different types. They put these things there, and they put them in the codes of the languages. That's why you will find in every language there's gematria, in French, in Russian, in Turkish, in Arabic, in Hebrew, in Spanish, in Latin. You'll actually find it, and many people will think that it's divine in their books. Unfortunately, it's not. But the rabbis who know this at the top, it's like I once asked a rabbi. I said, "Hey, many of these students are spending years trying to study." I said, "Why don't you just tell them?" And he said, "They have to figure it out. They have to learn it." Yes. So in the same way, it's the same way if you join many Masonic organizations. You can't just tell people, they say. They have to figure it out and they have to earn it and deserve it. Yes. So when you see how they've used the sacred geometry to set up the global systems today. Yes, you will find it in many events, the numerology, not just the number 19, but other things, or the number 33. So once you've understood the sacred geometry, yeah, it's like there is the two, the sun and the moon, the number two. Then there is the number five, yes, which is for the five platonic solids or the building blocks of life, and how it affects, how it creates life. Like it's like I told somebody, I said, don't look in a book. I said, he's a Muslim, and he turned around and said, hey, oh, I just follow the Quran. That's it. I said, but your Quran tells you, yes. So look at the sky and see how the rain falls from the sky above. I said, watch. And then it falls onto the floor, onto a land where the land is dead. There's nothing there. And then mysteriously, plants and other things start growing. And then life turns up. Yes. I said, I want you to watch it and tell me what you actually find. Look for the signs. Yes. And things like that. I said, don't look online. I said, I want you to watch it. I said, if you want, just let tap water on and see it fall from the beginning and let it fall from a big place, like small droplets, and then watch it fall and tell me what happens to it. Yes. And I said, so there is squaring the circle. Yes, it's impossible to make a square from a circle. We know this. You can try it. Keep trying. So, and I turned around and said to him, hey, let's see if the water, yes, try and tell me how it's going to form a square in the circle. And you know what? He was looking online and he was just sending me pictures. And that's when I realized, hey, it's like he just wants the information in 5 minutes. That's why in many secret societies they hide the sacred geometry. But the
Hmm.
sacred geometry, yes, many people, it's actually, they call it sacred because it works. It's how the universe works. It's just
Right.
science. And it's Kabbalah, some people will say. But the Kabbalah books have been falsified, but they still have a lot of information there. Now, many people have gone crazy after they've read these books. It's because they focused on certain things that are worthless. Yes. So whoever wrote those books, they wrote them for a business. I've explained that in my book, Secrets of Kabbalah. You could spend years and then in the end, you didn't learn anything. You just went crazy and thought, this is it. This is ridiculous. But it is known that many people have, in fact, just become crazy. Yes. The thing is, but if you just do the simple maths and everything, and you look at it from a global perspective, then you begin to understand it. So first, have a look at the Kabbalah, then the 33rd degrees. And you've read my book, 33 Degrees. I've simplified things. I've simplified it. Yes? You've read it yourself. So the thing is, there are other things I've left them out. It doesn't mean that Fomenko left them out or did it deliberately to make it look nice. No, it's not about making it look nice, to make it simplified. So, of course, many people will say, oh, no, there's other aspects of the 33 degrees. Yes, that's why you move on to sacred geometry. So, Fomenko says, and shows the many astronomical calculations. But you've got to look up at astronomy yourself. Now, if you don't do that, you're not going to understand how he made those calculations to simplify things. You see? So that's why in my books I've shown Secrets of Kabbalah in 33 degrees. In the other books, I show many lights. But in those two books, I move further. And then I'll have another book next month, or maybe the month after. It will go, the Kaaba is the cube. It will talk about the sacred geometry and the science of the Muslim Kaaba. Now, the Muslim Kaaba is has been created by the Muslim Masons. Now, the word Mason, some people are going to turn and say, huh? Masons? There's many different types of Masons. People don't understand Masonry. Masonry can mean machinery, but it also has another meaning. Like there is Rome, Roman. Yes, you see? It just means, a Roman. Then there is Mesa or Musa, Moses in Arabic. So a Mason is Musan. You see? A man who's following the way of Moses. So there is several meanings. Yes. And the thing is, Fomenko points out, and so does Nosovsky, that Jesus Christ and these prophets, many of them were basically professors. And then they show Euclid. Yes. And then they show, what he does with, is it geometry and other things? And they say that this information was actually from Christ. Jesus Christ was a scientist. He was a professor. You see? Uh, let me see what Euclid did. So they're going to turn around and say Euclid was the Greek mathematician and geometry. If you want, you could put lots of pictures in this video, but today I'm just having a general conversation. So there was all these geometries. So he's the father of geometry. You see? Yes. And all these are the things. He goes into the elements. And notice that there's 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and ether. They're the 5 main ones if you want to understand sacred geometry. Of course, there are going to be people who are saying there's more than this. Yes, there is. But for the basics, these are the basics that you are going to apply. Yes, when you're going to do something. Yes, and the others, you consider them as factors when you're going into it deeper. But if you don't understand the basics, how can you go deeper? So Fomenko simplified, he did many countries, which was a difficult job. He went through the histories of France, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, England, Spain, Italy, Greece, Bulgaria, Serbia. It just goes on and on. So what he did was, even though there's a lot of it, I've still not got anywhere near, all these stately countries, princely countries in India and in China. And he goes through many of them and the countries in the Middle East and many of the overlappings. And then he simplified it. So you've read my books, 33 Degrees and the Secrets of Kabbalah.
Yes.
Yeah. Have I not simplified it too?
Oh, certainly. Definitely.
Yes.
This way it's
So
somewhat
that's,
understandable,
yes.
whereas otherwise, like you said, there's millions of books about these topics. They give you 100 different stories, but it's always hard to glean the
Yes.
basic patterns from them because they like to write so
Yes.
much and so many different ideas, and you made it, yeah, simple on a few pages, yeah.
Simple. So once you understand the simple thing, you can move forward. You see? So now when you get to the sacred geometry, I've said there's several groups that are using it. They used it a lot in the late 19th century and early 20th century. A lot of Masons did it. Today, because many, many people join Masonry, different groups, they're not all under the same command in the West. And many of them oppose each other. But there's the principle that there's the main principle to make, heaven on earth, to make men better, and so that not just to make them better, but to make the world a more beautiful place. Yes. So that's Masonry. I mean, the Jesuits have different objectives.
I
Yes.
only have
It's
one.
different.
I'm sorry, David, that I'm always coming back to this, but I have a stupid question then. How does allowing the individuals to be poisoned in different ways help to make Eden on Earth in this logic, just so I can
Right.
understand?
That's a different thing. You have to. I will give you an example now. I want you to imagine when they invented the current standard Arabic. Yes, there was people who entered Masonry, yes, to learn the secrets, so that then they can write these dictionaries, modify words, invent the 3-letter root system in Arabic, because they added thousands of words there that we can't find in classical Arabic. But then when we check the classical Arabic, there's thousands of words there that we cannot find in Spanish Arabic that was used in Spain, or in Algerian Arabic, or in Ottoman Arabic, or in Persian Arabic. So you can see that even that was a forgery. That's placed on an even older, classical Arabic. Yes, many people aren't aware of it, but even during the Renaissance and after, they used the European Arabic to understand the Hebrew. But that's another long story. I don't want to divert. Let's go back to this sacred geometry. Because when Fomenko simplified it, he made it simple because he understood this sacred geometry. Yes, so now with the sacred geometry, what they've done is, yeah, there's people who join Masonic organizations. Like I could have joined in the late 19th century, a Masonic organization which was functioning in the Czech Republic. Now, I would join there so that I would understand the craft. Then I'm going to use the craft for my own objectives. Yes, to invent the alphabets and the letters and the dictionaries and modify things for the Czech language. You see, me,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm going to use that information with my team and other people. Now, once I've done that, because I'm going to do it with the purpose of, hey, I'm going to use this so that then I want it to have the maximum effect, because the shape of the symbols have an effect on you psychologically. Just the alphabet and then the words, that the way that they're done. So it's like they will have a certain coding. Yes. And then the people who will learn it in Czechoslovakia, that's why in Slovakia it's a bit different. Some other people thought, hey, no, I'm going to modify it a bit more, because then I will be able to control this region here. Yes. Somebody else has done it over there. He's done it not with the sole intention of enlightening people, to awaken them, but he's also done it with the intention, I'm going to awaken them within this region, but then I want to make sure that I'm ruling them and they're under my control. Now, if it gets out of control, I'm going to modify things and add lies. You see? And that's where many historians applied this masonry, or this craft that's been used by Jesuits and um, nationalists and religious organizations and other people. So that's what they did. That's what they did. They applied this sacred science. They call it sacred. Yes. They call it sacred. It's like in the Quran, it uses the word sakar. Yes. It's called sakar. Yes. And they say over it is 19. Yes. So sacred, and it also means secret. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So one, it's called sacred. Two, it's called secret. Another, it's called sakar, and it's like they say it's like a fire or a burning, or it's like a secret. It's like they say it's a very big thing. And once you learn it, you can understand many of the things. Now, for example, in modern Islam, the way that they pray, the way that they've got the system at the Kaaba, the cube, and you know it more, but I'm not going to talk about it now until I finish the book or present the evidence, because many it's not good unless if I've totally simplified it. What they've done over there, it's probably the biggest masonry project in the world, the Muslim system at the Kaaba. Masonry means the machinery. Now, the Enlightenment, many people say the Enlightenment is based on God or the Grand Architect. But the definition of who is God, yes, to understand that in these different organizations, you can see, yeah, I've explained that in the 33 degrees and secrets of Kabbalah. Yes, so different organizations have the different principle of who is God. So in Islam, how they did it, it's very shocking. It's actually very shocking how they've applied it now, and it's the most successful one. It's the most successful form of masonry in the world, because when we look at 100 years ago, many people say Islam isn't growing. 100 years ago, Islam was probably 10% of the world. Today it's 20, and many people are going to say it's just by birth rate. Actually, it's not. The number of people who have joined Islam just in the last 100 years is actually shocking if people have a look. Yeah. The way it's been spreading in Russia, in India, believe it or not,
I'm
in
not sure
India, the number of people. Yes, go
if I
on.
had brought this up before, but from what I have learned, the very superficial information is that, for example, if I'm joining Christianity and I'm a Buddhist, I would be converting to Christianity. However, if I'm joining the Muslim faith, I would be
Ah, yes. No, no, no.
I would, no, no, let me just
You're
finish.
seeing that from that point of
No,
view.
no, no, just
No, I understand. Wait,
reconverting. Okay,
I'll make it
please go on.
simple.
Yes.
Yeah. In India, for example, like I showed you, there's many people who they call them Dalits, or people who don't have any religion. Remember, I've shown you these videos? Actually, there's
Yes.
millions of these people, maybe even several hundred million. In the Thar Desert, there's probably about 50 million people in India like this without a religion. And these people slowly, they're either joining Hinduism, Christianity, or Islam every day. They're coming out of their own free will. And there's entire villages that are just changing every week. People don't know these things. And in Africa as well. In Africa, there's hundreds of millions of people without a religion, and they're actually joining religions, thinking, hey, I want to join this. And because they're tribal, it's like the educated person or the elder will come and say, look, I study in the city area. And then he'll share the religion to his entire family and their entire tribe. It's actually happening right now. Many people don't know this. And in Latin America. I'm being serious, people who don't have no religion whatsoever. How Didier Lacapelle would define them as virgin populations. And
Hmm.
that has been happening in Indonesia is a very big country. Many people don't realize. I think it's got about 200 million people. And every week there's new villages like in Jayapura. They call it next door to Papua New Guinea. Yes. We see entire villages that are embracing either Islam or Christianity every week. And then the thing is, the number of people who are actually leaving Christianity every week is actually a lot in Western nations is a lot higher than the number of people who are leaving Islam. So that's why Islam has actually doubled in 100 years. Many people are not aware of the number of people who've entered Islam like this. So it's not just by what you're aware of. I know what you were going to say, that the children become Muslim, the parents taught them and things like this. I'm saying
No,
excluding that.
yes, not only that, what I was meaning is that the term, from what I understand, in Islam is called reconversion because they claim that originally everyone was Muslim.
That's a
That's what I
tiny
meant.
revert. These days, revert.
But
I'll call them
all I want to
convert.
suggest is, is it entirely impossible that original Islam is older or is the same as you discussed as original Christianity and original
That's going to be in
Judaism,
my
you
book.
know? So,
That's going to be in my new book about the sacred geometry of the Kaaba. It's like it was well known in the 17th century, before they invented these languages. There's many Latin treatises and many people who commented, and they wrote. I've forgotten even the names that it's well known in Spain and throughout Europe, what we call Jewish people who were, yeah, the original Jews, who were the original Muslims, yes, they were Muslims. That's why they were even called a Mussulman all the way through to World
right.
War II. Yes, these people, they spoke Arabic up to the 18th century. They spoke Arabic, and all it is when you look at Solitreo, is that it's just a handwriting change. Everybody knows, even if you go to Israel today, hardly anybody uses Hebrew. It's because it's difficult to write these shapes and these symbols and things like that. So people use their own shorthand and all these other things, you see. But it's the same language, but then they modified it. For Arabic, they started modifying it in the 18th century. That's why they could take it to the Middle East in the 19th century and start teaching it people Hebrew. They finally turned it into a living language, modified it in the late 19th century and early 20th century, 100 years later, you see? So to make it speakable and understandable and give it new meanings. But if you look inside the Bible, you'll basically find almost every word in the Quran. You see? Yeah, it's got the same language.
Hmm.
You'll basically find every word. I don't know what else to say, so it's the same language. But they've turned around and said, oh, it has a different meaning. And in the same way, you'll probably find every single word in the Quran. I mean, the Quran is not the Arabic language. It's only got, like 500 words for 80% of the book and maybe another 100 or 200 words. I mean, the thing is that in a normal language that we use every day, about 10,000 words if you're in the village, uneducated, or 20,000 words on average, that we use. Like I'm talking to you now, that's with a vocab of about 25,000 words. I would say if we continue talking for hours and days, I'm using that sort of a vocabulary.
Hmm.
You see? So if it's only got that many in the Quran, you'll find all these words in European languages, but they've just given them a different meaning. That's all.
Yes.
See? Yes, so that's how they modified history. And if somebody says, oh, no, they haven't done that, yes, they have. You go to Germany, and the same word will have a different meaning or pronunciation in Holland. Then when you jump from Holland to England, it has a different pronunciation and different meaning. Or you could jump from Holland to Denmark or from Germany, and you'll find the same word with a slightly different pronunciation and different meaning. And by the time you get to Norway, because the dictionary writers did that. That's why you see that the main symbol in masonry is geometry. That you'll see the square and the compass, squaring the circle. Yes, and that's going from the 19 to the 33, and then you'll see that most of the people. A large percentage of people who joined masonry in the 19th century were writers because they were using this mathematics to insert it into books. Yeah, insert it into books, and they were using the sacred art. And yeah, they lied in many things they said
And
of the
to
nation
turn
state.
themselves into historical authors as well, probably, for their
Yeah,
nation
but
state.
and the thing is, when we say that they were Masons, I will give you an example now. That one person could join Masonry with the intention of making the world a better place. Another person could join, yes, of to use the craft so that because let's say Bulgaria doesn't exist, to say, hey, I'm going to invent the Bulgarian language. Serbian's already been made, so now I will just use the template from Serbia, modify it a little bit more, change the pronunciation, this, that, and put it in the history. But because I've joined this Masonic lodge here, yes, and now I've got to try to fool the people. So what they used was used an existing history, modified it, made it mathematically balanced because you understood the sacred geometry. Yes, which is based on astronomy, as in as above, down below, as in the heavens above. You see? So that's what they did because, and that's why it says in the Quran, this is where the Quran comes in. It says, can't you see? And it tells you, look again. Can't you see? There's no mistakes. They're all worshiping God. And it says, look at the order. And that order is the worship of God. You see? So what they've done is applied this sacred order or sacred geometry mathematically, and they modified things. But because it was done by men, you could find where they did the lies. But many people who did this actually didn't do it for a bad reason. But others did it for their own nationalistic purposes and everything. Not everybody. Different people had different agendas. Some people thought, hey, I'm going to use this so that the world has gone backwards. Something happened 200 years ago, which we can't figure out. I just did a video with Nachiketa, two videos I did with him. One to show in India, there's thousands of buildings there that we don't know what they're doing there. It's like in Europe, at least, we know many of these buildings that they call churches, yeah, and other things. And there's similar thousands of buildings, and yeah, the British put domes and other things on them and said, "Hey, it's a mosque, it's a mosque, it's a mosque." And I did the final video to show the fraud of Hinduism and Buddhism, and where the origin of the images, the pictures, and the statues came from. Yes, and they chose the colors blue, green, yellow, red for the statues. And they chose these colors. This is more explained in the book 33 Degrees of the symbols. But the thing is, these pictures and statues didn't exist 150 years ago, yeah, or 200 years ago. They started the process a bit, and it was making money. And then it's only a phenomena since the late 19th century. Of course, many people will say, "Ah, these Hindu statues and these other things were there for centuries," but they weren't. And then when you go through some of the so-called alleged statues, and they say, "Oh, this is 500 years old, 1,000 years old, and 2,000 years old," but they're wearing the dress code of the 1920s and 30s. That gives the game away too. You see? But the thing is, the sacred geometry is important. It's like the thing is, if people don't learn it, yeah, then they won't understand it. Yeah. And the thing is, what Fomenko did was he simplified it because he's showing the history. He wasn't there to show astronomy. He wasn't there to show sacred geometry. He wasn't there to show these things. So I've gone into that in my books, Secrets of Kabbalah. Yes. And I've gone into it in the 33 degrees. Yes. I've done the starting point and the 33 degrees. Yeah. It's like, I'm sure you must have thought, what the hell is this? It's just a joke. But when you look at it, it shows you one thing, that they've applied this sacred geometry. So now, what
Right.
is this sacred geometry? And these things, I go into it deeper now that you know, okay, yes, classical astronomy, yes, is based on the 12 constellations that we can
Yeah.
see, but they divide it into 12, and the 5 planets and the sun and the moon. Now you know it's 19. Now you know of the 33, 33 points of the Kabbalah tree of life. Yes, but that 33 is basically when you look at the sky, that the sky comes alive in 3 dimensions. You see? So it's actually squaring the circle that you see in the sky above you. That's why they applied the sacred geometry of building domes in many buildings, because the dome is supposed to represent the heavens. And that's why they made many mosques, churches, or other places of worship, or even, just, great buildings or anything with a square base. Or they had a double square base to make it like, the double cube and other things. Yes, but once you understand the principles, you get to know it. It's just something simple. And then the thing is, yes, there is lies, and it's like, for example, there is the Lord of the Rings. Can you imagine? It's so popular in some countries that you could turn around. Let's say the world goes backwards, a major disastrous war like Gaza, and it happens everywhere, 10 times worse. So then, people forget the history. They don't go to school. They don't go anywhere. And then the thing is, you just keep showing Lord of the Rings on television for 100 years. Then there's no televisions. And then you know what you do? Yeah, you tell people this is the actual history of
Yeah.
the world. Yes, that's what you do. So that's what they managed to do. They just told people this is the history and everything, but they put the morals in it. And of course, there was Masons who were involved in nationalistic projects because many people thought, hey, me, my family, my people, and money is involved. It's like, don't forget how bad the world was. I mean, I don't like saying it. When I give charity to people, many people lie and they try to abuse it to take more money. And the thing is, when I give money out, I realize how difficult it is for many welfare states. People are coming, and you give them the basic amount. You've got to keep the economy running. You've got limited cash, and then they're telling lies just to get extra money. Things like this. Oh, it's a nightmare. So many people who were making nation states, they took these factors into consideration, the state of the world, but others were greedy and they took into consideration their own families and their own people of how they're going to benefit themselves. You see, but the thing is, it's realistic. We do need law and order. We do need law and order. I mean, we can't have chaos. I mean, we can't just turn the country into places where mobs and unruly people are doing things. Yeah, somebody turned around and said, "Hey,
Well, like I told
they,
you before, and I'll just keep repeating this, as long as the medical system is where it stands, I don't really see that there is no war going on the street, if you catch my drift. So, to me, it seems like it's just moved to a different sphere of conflict, but it's also still very dangerous and people can get hurt really
it
badly.
is." But when we look at it, the thing is, just go to some towns and cities and villages in China, and then when you see that it takes you, like the police come the next day, that's when you will realize, or the ambulance doesn't come at all. That's when you will realize, yes, that it's a difficult job. It's actually very difficult. Oh, and then, if there's any proper roads in many places, yes, and that's when you will think, hey, what are we going to do? And then if people are going to say, hey, we don't have enough freedom here, we've got a lot more than what many countries have got on other sides of the world. Like we can discuss the lies in history, the lies in politics. It's because many of the people, not everybody, but maybe half, of the people who are in power. They're actually nice people, and half of them have got their own agendas.
Well,
But the ones that are nice
then there is
are
just this,
defending our freedoms. And
right.
the thing is,
But then the other
yes, they
half seem to
know.
be the ones where they say they want to have China as a model, because that's what you often hear from wealthy people and so on. They're like, oh, we want to have it just like China.
Oh,
It's the perfect model for Europe as
I'll
well.
give you an example. It's like I'll give you an example. There's a lot of propaganda. It's like you'll have Henry Kissinger, who's probably said that. Now, when he said that, and many of his allies, what if they were paid to say it to make people afraid, so that people will realize and think, hey, we've got a lot of good things. Let's protect it in a proper civilized manner, not in a way whereby you're going to throw bricks and attack police officers. Yes, of course, sometimes states make draconian laws and the police have done bad actions. Yes, okay. But when things are good, if things are good, like they are right now in many Western countries, then there is no reason that you should be attacking the police or throwing bricks. You see? Yes, there is no reason. I don't see it. It's the thing is when things are good, let's make things better. Right now, in many places throughout Europe, things are very good. So let's make them better. Of course, there's going to be a lot of lies and everything. If they're there, then in a civilized way, you speak up, trying to keep a balance, not to disturb people, not to hurt people or insult people, or resort to violence and to make things better. It's like, for example, I do know that our nations in our side of the world, we're cheating people. In the other side of the world, we're robbing them. Yeah, we're actually cheating them. We're robbing them. It's disgraceful. Yes, but the thing is, we've got to find a way to help the other side of the world without destroying ours. Now, there are people in the other side of the world, they want our economies and our lifestyle to collapse. Yes, now if that happens, they get a better life. And then how will they treat us? They're not going to treat us any different realistically because they will want to enjoy the things that we've got right now because they're not enjoying it and they're not going to let go. Unfortunately, our nation states have invaded other sides of the world. We've set up agreements that are to our advantage. Yes, that we're gaining, a lot more, like we're minimum 25 years ahead compared to the Second World. And me personally, yes, I love poor people. Everyone knows that. I love them. I want to make the world a better place. But I'm not going to sacrifice our side of the world for the other side of the world. I
Right.
what I suggest is what we've got, let's make it strong. Let's make it strong. And yeah, many people are going to say, oh, countries like China and Russia, yes, they invest in poor countries and they don't have preconditions. Well, we have preconditions, yeah, believe it or not. Yes, we do the same economic fraud like Russia and China do for their advantage, but at least in our side of the world, we have some moral standards. Some, half of them, as long as we're not invading someone and beating them up and raping them and torturing them, but we do have a lot of moral standards. I've had a look at some of the agreements and I've seen, um, when many of our company representatives, there's millions of them going to other sides of the world over the last 10 years. Many of them live in many of these countries. And yeah, so that's why, yeah, we've got immigration coming here and we've got our immigration going there. That's what we have to consider. And the amount of money that we're bringing back is actually more than we're sending away. It's like one person turned around and commented, saying, some of these immigration people here, I don't see them contributing. They're just taxi drivers. Okay, let's go back to the 1980s. Yes, when we had taxi drivers in Europe who used to drink. Yes,
Hmm.
who used to drink, and you can't stop them. I mean, what are we going to do? We've still got that happening. You see, in many countries where they have a small Muslim population, you've got taxi drivers who are drinking. I mean, what are you going to do there? There, I don't know what to say. Even in Russia, I was surprised a large percentage of the taxi drivers were Muslim. And it's a recent phenomenon just in the last 10 years. And then I asked people, what's going on? Because it's new over there, the people said, oh, it's because our Russian drivers are drunk. I thought, what? Yes. So what are you supposed to do? You see? Yeah, yeah. Well, what people could do is leave comments because we're just having a general chat today. Yeah, and if there was something
Yes,
that they
please.
don't understand,
Everyone leave comments, ask
yeah,
questions, put your own
yeah,
research and
because I didn't
insights.
go into deep into many subjects talking about the sexuality or other things. But the thing is, our sexuality and our sexual behavior actually affects the surroundings, the energy does, believe it or not. That's why many rabbis say no, many priests say no. Yes, of course, some of them went very far in the past. In some Christian organizations, whereby they thought we're going to be celibate and things like this. But the thing is, it does have an effect. I don't understand it at all, totally. I mean, I understand some of it, but not all of it. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to pretend I do. But it's got a lot to do with human destiny and things like that. So there were some topics I didn't finish, or the story of Adam and Eve. But next time we can go through it. It's like when it says the fruit that when you're going to eat it, and then there was blood, and they found themselves naked. Basically, you're going to die. And so there's these issues. But I go through some of those issues in the 33 degrees in that book there. Yeah. Okay, I'll let you go because you've got things to do. But as you can see, Fomenko didn't just make it look good. No, he simplified it. Because when you look at the amount of work that he's done and the detail, then
Right.
you will understand
Yeah.
that if he is just going to make something look good, that's going to make him look bad.
Oh,
And
for
you've read
sure.
my book 30, yeah, you've read my book 33 Degrees and all of my other books. As you've noticed, in the book 33 Degrees, I'm not trying to make it look good. I'm just
No.
simplifying it.
Yes.
I made it simple. I
Yes,
made
yes.
it so simple. Did you realize?
Sure,
Yes.
yes,
So that
definitely.
then, yeah, so that now that you understand the 33rd degree, we can go to the next topic, which I've basically never mentioned to you before, sacred geometry, which is just simple science. Now we can actually go there. Yes, I mentioned the Platonic solids today, which I didn't do before because I couldn't. It's because if you're not going to see the 33 degrees, yes, then how will you understand the Platonic solids? You see? So once you could see the 33 degrees, you can go on to the sacred geometry. And then once you understand the sacred geometry and all these things, you yourself can become a grandmaster. You see? You understand the Kabbalah and all these other things, and then the sacred geometry. I mean, then you become a grandmaster. And then, there you go. I don't know what else to say. You see?
Great. All
Yes.
without joining secret societies. I think that's amazing. Open
No, no,
source
no.
grandmaster.
There's many Masons who are not part of, official Masonry. Many people don't know this.
Hmm.
There are different Masonic organizations, and you could say the Jesuits are Masons. They apply Masonry, or they have done in the past. Many of them in their writings and their works. So you could say they're Masons. You see, but many people won't understand that. Yes. So there's different types, and you could say the Sufis, so, the higher up Sufis, that they're Masons, but a Mason, as you can see, could have several meanings, and they're just different organizations. You see, and there are independent Masons, or people who just understand the system,
Hmm.
or they understand the craft, and then they can see through the coding in from different organizations, because you could say that communism, the hierarchy in the system, and they
Yeah.
use the sacred geometry. So you could call them a different type of Masonic order. In different countries, the Vietnamese party, they use their own codes. You could even say the CIA applies the sacred geometry. You see, different organizations, that's what they do. You see? Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know why they don't teach it in school, but must be a big reason. They call it the secret, the
It's better to
sacred.
make money this way, I guess, if not everyone knows about it.
maybe it makes money. Yes, but anyway, so there's all these different things. So the bottom line is Fomenko simplified it, and it was a reconstruction. And yeah, many people will be thinking about the dates and things like this. So it's like Fomenko shows. He talks about the sacred geometry. He talks about the astronomy and other things. Now it's your job to go and see the to understand this astronomy. He talks about how the Jesuits falsified history. Now it's your job to go out there to understand what is this art and this craft of sacred geometry that the Jesuits used. You see, now Fomenko doesn't go into that. Yeah, so there will be in many cases where people will see, I can't see this or I don't understand this, but he goes through the basics that you basically can see. You can see that history is a joke and it's a lie. Yeah. So
Yeah.
once he does that, and then if you're interested, yeah, you study it. And I've basically made the Kabbalah and the 33 degrees very easy. Yeah, I've made it so easy. I don't know what else to say. And in the next book, I'm going to go through sacred geometry, and like I said, one of the biggest sacred geometry projects in the world, yes, is actually the Islamic system that they've created. It's one of the biggest projects to do with sacred geometry, or what some people will say the art or the craft, where you apply it. Yes, to do with the Kaaba and how the Muslims pray and everything else, and how it is written in the Quran and the interpretation. It's actually amazing. It's actually amazing. I'm gonna have to say this. So if you understand the 33rd degree and then you go on to the next part, sacred geometry, and you see it, you turn and think, "Whoa, it's just amazing." But the, but it, but what else can I say? I don't know. Maybe if you're younger and you studied it, from a young age, you'll just think it's normal. But if you put your mind to it and think, yes, then you'll turn around and think, hey, it's amazing because what we're doing is trying to make heaven on earth, and there's certain factors in the way and disagreements of how to make heaven on earth.
Oh,
So
definitely,
that's why
yes.
we have, yeah, there's different factions, different ideas, and of course there is never one way. There's always different ways. That's it's because you could have 10 people or 20 people in a classroom, and people have their thoughts in many different places. I mean, it's communism, yes, whereby you have all the thoughts in one direction in one place and everything like that. But in our side of the world, communism isn't for us. It doesn't work for us. In maybe other sides of the world, they say it works, but it doesn't really. We can see China is not a really communist place. It's actually a very free place, believe it or not. In the modern places, because now they've made it modern, they used communism just to get to this modernism.
Hmm.
And in the modern parts, I mean, there's so much freedom; it's unbelievable. You see? Yes. Anyway, Raphael, I'm going to go. I'll leave you to it because you've got things to do. Yes.
Thank you very much, David. Looking forward to the next talk and presentation. Hope everyone enjoyed this talk that you're
Okay.
giving. And again, please, everyone, leave your comments and questions and insights. And catch you all next time. Thank you very much, David.